Hi, this is Danny Doyle, and I'm here with a Path of Radiance skills tier list. There's a good number of skills in Path of Radiance. This is the game that sort of brought them back after their absence on the Game Boy Advance. And while they're not as many as you might expect in like Fates or Awakening or anything like that, there's a decent number of skills, and so I figured it would be fun to do a tier list of them so that you can determine what skills you want to give to what people, what skills you might want to remove to people, because there are some skills that I actually think are like actively bad, which is why I've named one of the tiers actively bad. What skills you might want to sell if it's like a very expensive skill scroll, because you can get skill scrolls to teach skills to people, but some skills basically do nothing, and you might want to sell those. You know, the 500 gold or 1,000 gold or whatever is more valuable than getting Miracle on someone or whatever. But yeah, I've just got all of the skills in the game here listed in alphabetical order, as well as the tier list that I have has 4 skills included that are not real. I mean, I guess technically they're in the game, mostly unused. The only one that is like real is Daunt right here. So I guess if you use like a randomizer, you might get Daunt, which is, I believe, only on Petrine in actual Path of Radiance. But it just reduces enemies hit within 3 tiles by 5 points, and their crit. Hit and crit -5 to all enemies within 3 tiles, which, like, if you get this in a randomizer, I would put it in niche. For the purposes of like ranking skills in actual vanilla play, I'm gonna leave it in not real, but just know if you get it in like you're doing a randomizer or some other thing, like boss recruitment, whatever, Daunt's fine, but like -5 hit, -5 crit is like, maybe I think I'd put it in basically nothing actually. If it was like -5 avoid, then like niche, but yeah, reducing enemy hit and crit, I guess reducing enemy crit is actually useful. Yeah, so niche. And then the other 3 are like, you're never gonna get these. Like, Mantle is, a unit is literally invincible. And I believe that's only on Sepharin in the prison escape map, so you can't get him killed because he's plot important and he's an NPC. And then Discipline is an unused skill that makes it so you deal less damage to enemies. I think Grail has it in like, I don't think he has it as an enemy in Prologue, but I think he has it as an NPC in like cutscenes or whatever. And Iron Wall is an unused skill that is completely unprogrammed, like it doesn't have any effect. Presumably it was some sort of general base skill, but they replaced it with like Pavise or whatever they've got now. So if you end up with these in a randomizer, like, just get rid of them. They do nothing. This one, like, actively hurts you. And this one takes 5 capacity. Like, this one's at least 0 capacity. This one takes 5 capacity and has no effect. So, yeah. But with that out of the way, let's move on to the skills that you might actually have in a real playthrough. The tier list just has these in alphabetical order, and I'll admit, I don't know literally all of them off of just their symbols, so if you see my mouse disappear, I have the wiki open in the other window, which has the skills listed in alphabetical order. But we'll start out with Adept. Adept gives you, I believe it's speed % chance to attack twice instead of once. It's either speed or skill. It's usually speed. In Path of Radiance, it is skill %. Okay, a skill % chance to attack twice instead of once. I know it starts out on Soren. You do eventually get a skill scroll for it. It starts out on Soren. I can't remember if it's on anyone else as well. It looks like it's, oh, Zehark, right. Zehark and Soren have it. I would say that this is a technically positive effect. It will sometimes just surprise you and you double the damage you were expecting to deal. So if you're having like Soren attack someone uncountered for chip and then he procs Adept, then he attacks twice instead of once, or realistically he attacks 3 times instead of twice if he was doubling. So it ups your damage in an unexpected situation. This can, if you're trying to like set up kills for a baby project or whatever, it can hurt you a little bit, but for the most part it's gonna be mostly positive. I think it's just unreliable. It being skill % is you're gonna get like 20% at most for most of the game. And like a 1 out of 5 chance to deal extra damage. It's technically positive, right? But it's not the biggest deal in the world. I would consider unlearning this if you're planning on using Soren and Zearch and you want to give them other potentially more useful skills, but there's no reason to get rid of it if you aren't giving them. Like, the only reason I would take it off Soren or Zearch is if I wanted to give them some other skills and they didn't have the capacity for that plus Adept, right? If I'm going for Wrath Resolve Soren or something, or Vantage Astra, well, I guess Vantage Astra wouldn't work, but Astra Zearch, you know, get rid of Adept or whatever. It is also, I guess I should pull up the capacity amounts. So this is 10 capacity. Most skills are going to be around 10 capacity. 10 is the baseline, 5 is for the really cheap ones, and then anything more than 10, those are considered premium skills, although oftentimes the pricing does not necessarily reflect the power. Next up we have Ether. This is an occult skill. Occult are the mastery skills that can only be taught to specific classes. And in Ether's case, it is specifically Ike's class of Lord. They're all only promoted classes as well. So you get, I think, 4 occult scrolls throughout the game, and whoever you give the occult scrolls to learns their class's specialty, instead of with other skills where like anyone who you give the Adept scroll can learn Adept. Ether is one of the stronger, probably the strongest actually, of the occult scrolls. I think I put this in Goated. I'm not a huge fan of Ike, but if you're using Ike, if you're doing like high investment Ike stuff, Ether is a good thing to give him. It lets him attack twice, and I believe the first attack is Soul, the second attack is Luna. If it's reversed, it is a little bit worse, but it is still good. Yeah, attack twice. The first time is Soul, the second time is Luna. So, Soul makes it so that you regain HP equal to what you dealt damage, and Luna makes it so that the enemy has their their defense cut in half. So the first attack being Soul, as opposed to the second attack being Soul, is nice because it means if you kill them in the first attack, you still recover like the full amount of HP. Whereas like if it Luna'd first and then it Soul'd, you like recover 3 HP or something stupid. Either is basically always going to kill anything it procs against, and it'll make Ike recover a ton of HP. And it proccing and making you attack twice, it's basically just like, what if Adept happened and then you gained a bunch? It's also skill percent. Maybe I move it down to noticeable positive effect. It's 20 capacity. That's the problem. It's 20 capacity, so you can't really combine it with anything else. Although I don't really know necessarily what you would. Maybe like Vantage. I think Vantage is actually 5 capacity, like weirdly enough. I guess I say weirdly enough, it's not very good in Path of Radiance, but no, Vantage is 10. Yeah, so it can't really be combined with anything, which does hold it back, I guess, a little bit. There's not really any Ether combos. This is probably the best way to kill the Black Knight, though, because you don't have access to Wrath Resolve by then. I think maybe move it down to noticeable positive effect. It is still RNG based. It's really fucking hype when it goes off, but skill percent, like with Adept, you know, at most it's gonna be around 1/5 of combats, which like that's a lot of combats. The fact it recovers your HP, I'm moving it up to Goated because I am tempted to put Soul in Goated when we get to that, and this is just strictly better Soul. I don't know if Soul's gonna end up in Goated, like I'm not spoiling it, but this is just strictly better Soul, so like, yeah, this goes in Goated. Oh, and the other thing I guess is that a lot of Path of Radiance's skills are luck-based, percentage-based, right? So if we're grading on that curve, in another game where you get like, you know, Elbow Room and Strong Riposte, those sorts of things which are not percentage-based, like where you can control the condition, I would put Ether a lot lower. But here, you know, 1/5 of the time, it tends to be the condition for most of these skills, and you can do a lot worse than kill the enemy and recover a fuck ton of HP. For example, you could do a lot worse in terms of Astra. I'm actually tempted to put Astra in actively bad. I'm going to put it there for now, and I'm going to talk about it, and maybe I'll convince myself to move it up. It is another occult scroll. It is the occult scroll for sword masters specifically, and it is a skill divided by 2% chance. So it's got half the proc rate of Aether and Adept. If we're assuming we have a high skill, probably gonna proc once every 10 or so combats. And what it does is you attack 5 times instead of 1 time. All of those attacks, I believe, the damage is cut in half. Yeah, the damage is cut in half. So it's got less damage than a critical hit, because it's 2.5 times the expected damage. But it also uses up your weapon durability. You lose 5 durability. Now, the upside is, in theory, any of those 5 attacks can also crit. It's also possible for those 5 attacks to miss. Oh wait, no, that's just in Radiant Dawn, sorry. It got nerfed in Radiant Dawn. But in Path of Radiance, still, you spend 5 weapon durability, you get less damage out of it than a crit. The proc percentage is also usually going to be lower than a crit, because Swordmasters get a plus 15 crit bonus. And then, like, no, it's always going to be lower than a crit percent to get Astra, because you have the plus 15 crit bonus, and then even if you get the 30 skill to bring it up to, well, skill divided by 2 is now 15%, that skill gets added into your crit, and they have crit on top of the weapon crit of, like, Vague Kati, Killing Edge, that sort of stuff. Yeah, this is a really bad skill, and it's 20 capacity, that's your whole fucking meter. You can use the Occult Scroll to teach it to your Swordmasters, so Lucia, Zehark, and Mia. And then Stefan, the Swordmaster, joins with it. But I would honestly say if you're going to use him, take Astra off of him. Because part of the big thing about Stefan, right, is he's got S-rank swords, so he can use your really expensive swords, like Vague Kati, like Silver Sword, all that stuff. But if he's using an expensive sword he's killing anyway, he procs Astra, it cuts your damage in half. Like, say you were one-shotting with a Silver Sword, you proc Astra, that's 2 durability in the Silver Sword. Like, in most cases, you're not using all 5 durability, so it's not quite, it cuts your durability by 5. But it cuts your durability by a lot. You'll chew through your expensive swords so quickly, and then you just end up with, like, well, now, where'd all my money go? Where'd all my swords go? Like, I've just got a shitty Swordmaster who I guess has to try and proc Astra with Iron Sword in order to kill anything. Astra is so fucking bad in Path of Radiance, like, it's so fucking bad. If you want to do, like, percent-based things with Swordmasters, just fucking use the critical hits. Like, just use the critical hits. Next up is Blessing. Blessing is, I think it's technically the occult scroll for Herons, but the only Heron you get, Rayson, starts with it already. It restores HP to adjacent allies at the start of your turn, I think equal to your magic value. Rayson doesn't have a particularly good magic stat, but it's not particularly bad either. I was gonna double check that. I should have pulled this up beforehand. We're not cutting this out, but I gotta double check his magic stat. Yeah, it's 10. It's 10, and then when he's transformed, it's 15, and a 40% growth. So, like, yeah, not particularly good, but not particularly bad. This is a noticeable positive effect. Healing everyone adjacent to him by 10 HP or 15 HP every turn, like, that's nice. You know, it's Azura's personal skill in that you're never gonna say no to it. I guess the only time it could technically hurt is if you've got, like, a Wrath Resolve unit. But then just, like, don't put them next to him, right? It's not like Fortify, where you're gonna cover the entire map in order to turn off your low HP units. Just don't have your low HP units end their turn next to Rayson. It's not that difficult. I think this is stealthily one of the better skills in the game, which says more about my opinion of other skills, as opposed to it necessarily being, like, a super awesome low-tier god skill or whatever. It's a thing that's nice. And it's a controllable effect, right? It saves some amount of healing. If you're only running Mist or only running Wrist instead of having multiple staffers, it's nice. It's especially nice for people who choose to go with Khalil instead of Soren or Ileana or Tormod as their Sage of choice, because Khalil doesn't have staves, so that's -1 staffer on your team, Whereas, like, if you trained up Soren, Ileana, or Tormod, you would have, like, I mean, it's E-rank stabs, so they would be able to hit heal, and that's basically it. But, like, you know, it's an extra staffer. So if you're missing out on that, it's just nice to have this minor passive healing. Not a huge deal, but also not, like, it's noticeable, right? It's a noticeable positive effect. It's better than fucking Blossom. This is actively bad. So this takes 15 capacity. It is not teachable. The only unit who has it is Soth, and he starts out with it. Its description is vague, but already tells you that it's bad. It cuts your experience gain, but it makes you get better level ups. And better level ups should very much be in quotation marks. So it reduces your experience gain to 2/3. However, it makes it so that so there's two growth modes, random growths and fixed growths. On fixed growths, normally it keeps track of how many, like, percentage growths you're getting, and when you hit 100, you gain a stat. For a unit with Blossom, when they hit 90, they gain the stat instead, which is so fucking insignificant. Like, what? And then on random, it's even worse. On random, it means basically everything rolls twice. Actually, random's probably better. So say you've got, the way the growths work is you've got a growth which is a percentage, right? If you've got a 40% strength growth, it rolls a number between 1 and 100. If it's 40 or lower, then you gain strength, and if it's 41 or higher, you do not gain strength. If you have Blossom, it rolls the number. If it's 41 or higher, it rolls a second number, and then if that number is 41 or higher, you do not gain strength. But if either of the first numbers are 40 or lower, you gain strength. So it gives you 2 chances on each level up, which is nice. It's not quite doubling your growth rates. There's some complicated math that I don't really want to get into. But it's like, it is a boost. It cuts your experience gain, though. And it's also on Soth, who's like a thief, a utility unit. So, like, I don't know. I think it's bad. Soth is, like, so bad that Blossom is only one part. Like, if Soth didn't have Blossom, it wouldn't be that bad. I would say if you're planning on using Soth, probably take Blossom off of him. Unless you want a meme. Like, Blossom can be funny, but yeah, it's it's not good. Okay, sorry, I had a bit of a technical difficulty, but next up is Boon. And Boon is another of these mastery skills that technically is a mastery skill, but realistically, the only units who can have it are Nasir and Enna, and they both start with it. The way that Boon works is at the start of every turn, it restores your status. I think this is actually a noticeable positive effect, because on the only maps where you have Enna and Nasir, which is the big Laguz spam map and the final map of the game, there's a decent number of status stabs, especially on Hard and Maddening. There are sleep stabs all over the shop on the Laguz map, right? So being able to just wake up, not have to worry about getting put to sleep is nice. I guess the other status is poison, but like, who fucking cares? It's just nice. It's nice to not have to worry about enemy status staffers. That's cool. I wish that you could have it for like some of the other status spam maps, like Chapter 21 without a king. It'd be really nice. I guess technically you can just restore staff anyone who's put to sleep, but Boon means you don't have to waste your staffer's turn restore staffing, and that's pretty cool. Next up is Cancel. Cancel is the mastery skill for Hawks, and Tabarn starts with it. It is a skill % chance to prevent all damage that the user would take. I think I'm gonna put this in technically positive. It's in this weird camp where it's better than like Miracle, which can only trigger if you're going to die. Preventing damage is good. A shocker, preventing damage is good, but like, you shouldn't be relying on this skill, and if it goes up when you're not expecting it, like, it's nice, it saves a healer in action, I guess, but it's not a big deal. It's nice that Tabarn starts with it. I wouldn't use an Occult Scroll on it. Like, there's better options for Occult Scrolls, specifically Ether and Soul. I guess if you're going like long-term Janaf or Ulki and you really want them to pop the fuck off, like, you could consider it, but I think they would do better with like just active combat skills or something. Yeah, I don't really like cancel. It's like whatever. Next up is Canto. Canto it's the dance action. I don't know why they made it a skill. I don't know why they named it Canto. I mean, I guess it's named Canto because of the singing, right? But it's just the dance action. It means that Rayson can dance someone if he's untransformed, and then when transformed, he can dance 4 people, whoever's adjacent to him. Obviously, goated dancers are really good. Getting an extra action on even just 1 unit is good, but being able to extend that extra action to 4 different characters is so game-changing. Like, it gives you +3 in your action economy. It's not something you can take off of Rayson, like he just has it innately, which there's a few of these skills that are just not linked to the capacity. They're considered like, there's civilian versus soldier, I always forget which is which, but they're basically personal skills. So you can't remove it, but like you wouldn't want to anyway. Yeah, Canto's really good. Celerity is also really good. It's just +2 movement. It costs 15 capacity, and it's only on Tormod. You'll never get the option to give it to someone else, but like, it's good. You would never take it off of Tormod. Like, if you're using Tormod, you're using him because Celerity gives him 2 extra move. Like, that's the trade-off Tormod offers, is he's a lower level than the other mages at his join time, but he's got +2 move. It's unfortunate that mages being on armor movement means +2 move, he still doesn't, like, it just lets him catch up, basically. He's still slower than cavalry. He's 1 point of move ahead of the other infantry, which is nice, and 2 move, of course, ahead of other mages and armors, but, like, it's unfortunate that the +2 move skill is on a unit who's in the lowest move class in the game, and starts super under-leveled. Like, he's level 10. He joins after Makalov, and he's still level 10, and it's just like, what are we doing? But if you're using Tormod, you're using him specifically because of Celerity. And Celerity is the thing that makes him, like, even worth considering over the other mages, right? Otherwise, it's kind of a Nino situation where you're not worth talking about, but Celerity makes Tormod worth talking about. And that's the power of that skill, right? Like, it's goated. It's just goated. Next up is Colossus. This is one of the funniest skills out there. So this is the mastery skill for Warrior and Berserker. Nobody starts out with it, but you can give it to either Boyd or Largo. Those are the only 2 options to get it. One of them is a Warrior, one of them is a Berserker. It gives you extra damage equal to 1/4 of your strength, which is fucking nothing, by the way. Like, the Warrior strength cap is what, like 25, 30, something like that? We're talking at the end of the game, it hits 5 or 6 extra damage. Well, no, 5 or 6 extra damage is for 20. Hold on. What is the strength cap of Warrior in Path of Radiance? I need to see. Yeah, Path of Radiance, 30 strength cap. What is the strength cap for Berserker in Path of Radiance? Berserker, Path of Radiance, also 30! Also 30! Wait, okay, so the most damage this can do is 28. So that's 5, 6, 7? 7 extra damage at fucking capped strength? That's before taking into account the conditions, because holy shit, the conditions are so stupid. It's a skill % chance, so, you know, on the same level as Adept, which doubles your fucking power, on the same chance as Adept, but it also can only proc if your build is higher than the target's build. And you can get 7 extra damage at most, but usually it's closer to 4 or 5, like 5 damage at 20, 6 damage at 28, 4, and then 28 or higher, you get the big 7. This is basically nothing. Like, this is what basically nothing was made for. It's not actively bad. It's 20 capacity, so like it's the same capacity as Astra, but it doesn't waste your weapon durability, it just wastes your cult scroll. This is the stupidest skill of all time, by the way. Like, what the fuck is Colossus? What the fuck? This is so stupid. This is so stupid. Oh my god. Fucking Colossus. Imagine wasting your goddamn occult scroll on Boyd. Or Largo. Oh my god. Next up is Corrosion. I'm sorry. I need the fucking Colossus. Oh my god. Oh, I gotta get back in the Zen. I gotta get back in the Zen. Fucking Colossus. Fuck! 7 damage! And it's skill percent! And only if you have more con than them! You can't do it against Armor Knights because they have too much con! Oh my god! Fucking Colossus! Who made this skill? Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my fucking god! Oh my fucking god! Jesus fucking Christ! Oh my god. Oh fuck. Okay. Okay. Next up is Corrosion. You get a scroll for this. Like, this is a normal skill. It's not a mastery skill like Colossus. I gotta take a break. Fuck. Okay. I've composed myself. Corrosion. Corrosion is a skill. It's one of the few, it's one of the first ones we've talked about where you get a scroll for it. You can actually teach it to someone. And it starts on Bastion. There's also, Bastion starts with it. It has a skill percent chance to reduce the durability of your opponent's equipped weapon when you hit them with an attack. So this is not a defensive skill. It's not when your opponent hits you. You hit them, and you get a skill percent chance to reduce their weapon durability by your level divided by 4. So if you're level 20, you lower it by 5. If you're level 16 or lower, by 4. 12 or lower, by 3. 8 or lower, by 2. And 4 or lower, by 1. I think I'm gonna put this in niche. This feels like most of the time it does not matter. Your opponent's weapon has like 40 durability, right? You're killing them before that shit breaks, whether or not you're using Corrosion. However, especially since it starts on Bastion, there is one niche use case, and that is against enemies with Siege Tomes. Siege Tomes have very low durability, I believe only 5 each. So if you hit an enemy Siege Tome user with your own Siege Tome user, Mage on Mage Violence is typically not very effective because they have high resistance and you're hitting them on a resistance instead of physically. But you can break their Siege Tome, or at least, reduce the durability and make it easier to withstand the assault. So if you're going to give Corrosion to someone, I would give it to your trained mage of choice, whether that's Soren Ileana, Tormod, or Khalil. Or just wait, because Bastion joins before Clash, which is like the big anti-Siege Tome map anyway. Bastion actually joins before the Purge map as well, although you don't want to break the Purge because the enemy drops it. That's the thing, is it can sometimes be actively bad to like proc Corrosion on a droppable weapon. So I know some people would put it here. I do think it has that niche use case. I would sell the scroll personally and just use Bastion for like destroying enemy Siege Tome users, but it is very, very occasionally something, which is why I put it in niche. Next up is counter. Counter, so I know Titania starts with counter. I don't think anyone else does. Let me just double check real quick. Pull it up on the wiki. Yeah, so Titania starts with it, and then you can teach it via the counter scroll. I think it's basically nothing. On Titania especially, it's basically nothing. Counter is a skill divided by 2% chance to deal half of the damage your opponent dealt to you back at them, reflect it back. So it procs when you get hit by something. If you get hit and dealt damage for 5, you reflect back 2, because it always rounds down. Path of Radiance, anytime there's rounding in Path of Radiance, all fractions round down. Even if it's like 0.9, nope, rounds down. So skill divided by 2% chance, so it's not going to go off very often. You know, we're thinking around 10% of the time at most. 10 to 15% at like when we've capped our skill, right? And you don't want to be taking damage. Like, typically, your strongest units, especially like Titania, take very little damage from enemies. So counter goes off, you're not reflecting that much back at them, and it doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen often enough that you can in any way account for it. I think it's basically nothing. I would take this off Titania to fit something better, like Soul or whatnot. Yeah, it's just not very good. I would sell the counter scroll as well. I guess theoretically you could give it to a frailer unit, but then you run into the problem of, right, you don't want your frailer unit to take a ton of damage. Like if you've got Sorin or Riss or Nephany, someone who doesn't have a good defense stat, frontlining and counter goes off and they like, you deal a lot of damage to the enemy, you've also taken a lot of damage yourself. So it's a lose-lose situation. It's either not doing much for you, or it's a skill you just don't want to activate because you don't want to meet the condition for it. So it never feels good. And it doesn't really feel like there's a good situation for it. Next up is Deadeye. Deadeye is weird. It has 2 effects. The first is a skill % chance to put a target to sleep when it goes off, which that's basically nothing. That is basically nothing. However, it does have a second effect that I think brings it up to, I would say probably technically positive. It doubles your hit rate. It gives you double hit rate. Unfortunately, because this is 20 capacity, you cannot combine it with Gamble. This isn't a Occult Scroll, this is the Sniper Occult Scroll, so a trained roll for Shannon could get this with the Occult Scroll. And as such, it's 20 capacity. The skill % chance to put a target to sleep, while funny, it's mostly just used to like, oh, I forgot that there's a sniper on the final map with Deadeye, and now my unit's asleep. I feel like that's the only time that the Deadeye putting you to sleep matters. But doubling your hit rate, I think is technically positive. I would raise it above niche to technically positive. It means that Rolf and Shannon are basically never going to have accuracy issues if you give them this. Now, Sniper is already a pretty accurate class. You know, bows have pretty high hit rate. And snipers themselves, like both Shannon and Rolf, have good skill stats. But if you give them Deadeye, which, like, I don't know, I might as well. What else are they using, right? Adept, Provoke on Shannon. If you give them Deadeye, like, they'll super extra never have hit issues. And so you can use it for, like, you know, dodgy Swordmasters or Crows or whatever. And that's nice. Like, Pegasus Knights are a high-speed enemy, so they're going to have high avoid. So it's good. It's good. It's technically positive. I think it's, like, not the biggest deal in the world. It's up here purely for that passive hit doubling effect instead of the silly put you to sleep moment. But, like, that's cool. You know, I like it. I think it's really weird that this skill has, like, a passive effect and then also a % chance effect. Like, has there been any other skill in the franchise that does something like that? That's so weird to me. I don't know. Alright, next up is Flare. Flare is the mastery skill for Bishop and Sage. So Riss and then any of your Sages are able to learn it with the Occult. Since it's a mastery skill, it has 20 capacity. And it is a skill % chance to cut the enemy's resistance in half. It's the magical equivalent to Luna, which we'll get to later. I guess it's like, I think I'm gonna put it in niche, honestly. I would put it in technically positive because like skill percent chance, like it increases your damage or whatever, but res, while enemies in Path of Radiance do have a res stat, like that's why mages tend to be bad in this game, because enemy res is higher on average than it is in other games. It's still lower than defense for the most part, and so I think cutting an enemy's resistance in half is just going to increase your damage by less than cutting an enemy's defense in half. Either way, I'm not a huge fan of the Luna effect, but at least on Luna, there's like high defense enemies you might be fighting, like generals and whatnot. Whereas Flare, I guess for paladins or like fighting other mages, which is why I put it in niche, like the high res classes, if you end up having your mage fight high res classes. Otherwise, it's just like, it's a minor damage boost. Enemies do still have like decent res. Even generals will have decent res, like double digit res sometimes. And then like most enemies by the mid game have double digit res. So it's like, it's better than nothing, but it's worse than cutting defense in half. And of course it's skill percent, like it's Path of Radiance's classic percent based skills. So it's just not very good. Next up is Gamble. I think Gamble goes into basically nothing. So Gamble is, I believe you get a skill scroll for Gamble as well. But it starts out on Kieran. Yeah, you get a Gamble skill scroll. And then it starts out on Kieran. It's a 10 capacity skill that gives you an activated command. And the activated command allows you to double your crit rate in exchange for cutting your hit in half. This is awful. The only reason I do not have Gamble in actively bad is you can choose not to activate it. So it is technically not a downside because you technically never have to use it. However, activating it is actively bad. Because it cuts your hit. It takes overkill hit into account. So it doesn't cap you at 50%. If you have like 120 hit and the enemy has 0 void, then when you activate Gamble, you'll have 60 hit. But most of the time, it's going to cut you to around 50% in exchange for doubling your crit rate, which with most weapons means you go from 1% to 2% crit, or something stupid. Even with a killer weapon, like pumping, 35% crit up to 70% crit sounds awesome until you realize that cutting your hit from like 100% down to 50% functionally gives you a worse crit chance because you can't critical hit when you miss your attack. And that's the problem, is like it doesn't actually raise your crit chance because if you miss, then you don't crit. So like at most your crit chance is capped by your hit. Functionally, right? If you get your hit cut down to like 40%, it doesn't matter how high your crit rate is, like 60% of the time, not only do you not crit, but you don't hit at all. I'm tempted to move this down to actively bad, but I don't think a skill that you are allowed to just ignore can count as basically, like, as anything lower than basically nothing. It feels incorrect. I don't know. On the other hand, it feels wrong to not put this in actively bad. Like, this is definitionally only ever hurts you. The saddest thing about Gamble is, since it costs 10 capacity, you cannot combine it with Deadeye. Or then if that were the case, it would go up to niche, right? Because the niche should be combining it with Deadeye. It shouldn't be 10 capacity. This skill is fucking awful. Why is this 10 capacity? If anything should ever be 5 capacity, right? Like, it's this in Miracle. And they got it right for Miracle. Miracle's 5, but no, Gamble just had to suffer. Gamble heads crying. Makalov crying and shitting and pissing himself in the corner. It's just so sad. It's just so sad. I think I leave it in basically nothing, though. Like, the fact you can just choose not to activate it means, like, I don't know, I'd take it off of Kieran to fit something else on him, but if you forget to take it off of Kieran, it's not like Fates, right, where you get the passive effect, or Awakening, where you get the passive effect. You can just ignore the downside by ignoring the quote-unquote upside. Oh my fucking god, Gamble. Next up is Guard. So Guard is the mastery skill for Wyvern? Oh, no. Guard is just a regular skill. Guard is just a regular skill. I think I was confusing it with Stun from Radiant Dawn. So Guard is just a regular skill. You get a Guard scroll, and then Har starts out with it, which is why I associate it with Wyvern. It's 10 capacity, skill % chance upon hitting the enemy to stop them from attacking. So basically it prevents counterattacks. It can actually, like, if you're getting doubled and you proc Guard, it stops both of the counterattacks, which is kind of cool. But ultimately, I think it's basically nothing. You know what else stops the enemy from counterattacking you? Just fucking killing them, which is something Har does oftentimes. It's also, again, like a skill % chance. And when Guard goes off, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I don't take damage. But it doesn't even necessarily kill. Like, if you weren't going to kill them and it stops them from countering, it's just a worse version of Adept, right? I would put it in niche, but there's not really a niche for it. I guess technically it can save you from, like, if you're getting countered by an enemy that's really good against you, like Har threw a hand axe at a sniper for some reason. But like, it's just, what is the point of this, right? What is the point of Guard? It's just not good. It's just not good. Yeah, shoutouts to Radiant Dawn giving this, it renamed it to Cancel, but it's the same thing. They gave it to Leonardo, which, like, why? But yeah, I guess it technically sometimes stops you from taking a little bit of damage, but I'm not putting worse version of Adept in there, because it's just Adept. Like, Adept also sometimes stops you from taking damage you would expect by attacking twice. It's just bad. Guard is just bad. It's basically nothing. Yeah, it's basically nothing. Next up is Insight. Insight is another one of those, like, civilian skills. It's just permanently on Janaf, and it gives plus 20 hit. I guess noticeable positive effect? Either noticeable positive effect or technically positive. I think most people wouldn't notice it, but 20 extra hit is a lot of extra hit, and it comes at 0 cost. I don't think it's quite enough to put it in Goated. Probably mostly because of, like, who it's on. Like, it's on Janaf. And, like, Janaf probably wouldn't have huge issues anyway in terms of hit, but, like, it's similar to Deadeye, right? I guess maybe we put it in technically positive because it's a worse version of Deadeye, but it doesn't take capacity. So it's, like, kind of even in that regard. So yeah, I think technically positive. Plus 20 hit is good. I think that might be maybe that's an argument for Deadeye up to noticeable. No, I'm not putting a fucking occult scroll that doubles your hit rate on an already accurate class in noticeable positive effect. I do want to put the Insight in noticeable positive, though. I think it being free, like, it's the best thing that Janaf has going for him. It's free. Yeah, I think we put this in noticeable positive, in part because the ear one, that's gonna be technically positive, because that's the extra void, and that's, like, who fucking cares? Who fucking cares about plus 20 of void on Ulki? Like, do we have any Ulki stands in the chat? Please tell me. It's bad. Next up is Knife. Knife gives you the ability to use knives. Knives are the worst weapon type in the game. Both of your thieves, Volk and Soth, start out with it, and it, like, lets them do combat. But they are utility units. They shouldn't be doing combat anyway. And then you can give it to any of your mages upon promotion. So Tormod, Ileana, and Soren can all learn it. In exchange for giving up stabs, which is a bad fucking trade. And then Khalil and Bastion both start with it. The trade-off for them being, like, promoted, it's supposed to hold them back as compared to your trained-up sages. Like, it's the trade-off, is if you're not willing to put in the effort to train up a baby project, then you don't get stabs on your sage. I like that from a balancing perspective, to be honest. Like, it stops the pre-promotes from completely outshining the growth units, and I think that's cool. I'm gonna put in basically nothing because I don't think anyone who has knives, like, cares about using them. I'm not going to put it in actively bad. I know some people would put it in actively bad because it is a skill that can take away staff access from Tormod, Ilyana, and Sorin. But I think, I mean, one, the thieves get it for no downside, right? And then the other thing is that, like, Bastion and Khalil, like, them missing staves, I don't see the knife skill as the fault of that. That's, again, it's a balancing thing, right? I think that promoted sages having knives instead of staves is, like, pretty cool. I like it from a design perspective. It obviously nerfs them, but my, like, pet peeve is when people say, like, what were they thinking? They nerfed the sages. Yeah, they were trying to nerf them. Like, have you played Fire Emblem 7? Pent is stupid. They didn't want another Pent. This was an attempt to stop Pent 2.0 from happening. Like, I think it was a good idea. I think it gave the sort of the balancing scales. And I personally prefer Khalil to the trained ones, but, like, it's closer than it would be if she had stabs. If she had stabs, it's just fucking Jover for Sorin. Like, get fucked, loser. Have fun waiting for your boyfriend on the bench. Speaking of knife combat, our next skill is lethality. So lethality is the mastery skill for assassins. The only assassin in the game is Volk, because Soth is incapable of promoting. It gives you a crit divided by 2% chance to instantly kill your enemy. So basically, anytime you would land a critical hit, there's a coin flip, and if you win the coin flip, then instead of landing a crit, you instantly kill the enemy. Notably, this can happen even if you are not dealing damage to them. In later games, I think Fates is the first one that implemented a minimum 1 damage to lethality. Volk can just proc lethality against an armor that's walling him, and that's pretty cool. It's basically nothing, though. Volk shouldn't be doing combat. His stats are, like, fine. I see some people say his stats are goated and knives are what hold him back, but, like, his stats are fine. They're not good. They're just fine. Other units have better stats than him. He should just be doing utility thieving. And, like, that's his job. That's his job. I think lethality is basically nothing. It's a huge waste of a mastery skill. It's also 20 capacity, but, like, I don't think that Volk really has any other skills he wants, so it doesn't super matter. But yeah, it's fine. It's basically nothing. Next up is, I think this is Lumera? Yeah, Lumina. So this is the skill that gives you Light Tome access. The only unit who can get it is Riss. He gets it upon promoting to Bishop, and instead of having a Light Tome rank, Lumina means that you get light magic equivalent to your staff rank. I think this is sort of definitionally technically positive. Actually, I'm going to put it in noticeable positive effect. I don't think Riss should be doing combat most of the time. Even upon promotion, he's basically just a staffer. But you notice the fact he can start using weapons, and it lets him use Purge specifically without needing to do, like, light combat. The most annoying thing in the other Fire Emblem games is you promote your staff lock unit, like Safi promotes, and now you get E-rank light, and she should be staffing most of the time anyway, so she never gets the good light tomes, right? You know, you promote Saul, and then, like, well, we're never getting the S-rank light tome, because, like, Saul's staffing most of the time, all that fun stuff, right? The fact that this means when you get Purge, which is at the end of the fucking game, it's on the mountain map, but Riss can just, like, have Purge for Clash and, like, pick off some enemies with it or whatever. It's nice. It also doesn't take capacity. Like, it's one of those civilian skills where it doesn't take capacity, so it's a free effect, it's a bonus effect. It means on turns where Riss is not staffing, he technically has something to do. You throw, like, a light tome in his inventory. His combat's bad, like, he's super frail, even Nosferatu doesn't save him, but, like, I think the Purge, not having to, basically, because his combat's bad, this skill is good, because he doesn't have to do combat to get Purge, and, like, that's cool. That's pretty cool for him. Next up is Luna. This is the mastery skill of Generals and Halberdiers, so it's another occult scroll, it's also 20 capacity, and it gives you a skill % chance to cut the enemy's defense in half. I think this is just a better version of Flare. I still think it only goes as high as technically positive. Cutting the enemy's defense in half it's a damage boost, but it's usually going to be less of a damage boost than a critical hit would be. And skill percent change. Like, it's similar to Astra, right? Where just getting more damage or getting, like, a lower rate than a crit and having a worse payoff than a crit just feels bad. The other thing is that, like, I don't know, who are you giving this to, right? You're trained Braum, trained Gotri, not Nephany, because, like, you don't want to take Wrath off of Nephany, and this is 20 capacity, so you would have to. So, like, Devdon, I guess? Like, I don't know, Tyronio? Not Tyronio. You'd have to take Resolve off of him, right? Yeah, it's just not really many good users of it, and, like, when it happens, it's not very good. It again feels like a bit of a waste of an occult scroll. Honestly, a lot of the occult skills are pretty bad, though. I would sell them if I could. Yeah, I would sell them if I could. I guess maybe because, like, this is one of the only good occult scrolls. Am I talking myself into pushing Deadeye into noticeable positive effect? Like, would you actually notice the doubled hit rate? Maybe it's just that everything around it sucks so much. I want to put it up there, but, like, I can't justify it. You don't fucking notice the Deadeye boost. Luna is more noticeable than the Deadeye boost, but it's less impactful. Maybe that's the take, is, like, people don't notice it, but Deadeye helps you stealthily. Like Tamara's personal skill. You don't know how many times you would have gotten crit without Tamara's personal skill. And that's pretty cool. But Luna is not. Luna's whatever. Next up is Miracle. This is, I think, the only skill in the game that's only 5 capacity. You get it very early. It's a luck percent chance to prevent lethal damage and instead leave you at 1 HP. And this can proc multiple times. So if you're at 1 HP and Miracle procs, you stay at 1 HP. However, it can only happen if you would die. And, luck percent chance. Like, you shouldn't put yourself in a situation where you're relying on Miracle. If Miracle goes off, you made a mistake. You made a play error, and, you shouldn't have done that. So, I think Miracle, basically nothing. I don't think it's actively bad, because it, like, saving a unit's life is good, I guess. But you should always sell it. Like, it's just not very good. Nobody starts with it? Oh, no, Mist starts with it, right? Oh, Anna and Mist start with it. Yeah, Anna and Mist start with it. So that's cool for them. If you're doing an Iron Man and, like, I guess leave it on Mist, it's 5 capacity, right? So, like, what is the harm? But, like, I don't know. It's like, what is the harm, but also what is the help? Leave it on Mist if you're Iron Manning, like, maybe you'll get saved from a big mistake. But you shouldn't be relying on it. You shouldn't, like, overextend, because, oh, now I've got Miracle, luck percent chance to not die. You'll die more often than you won't. Next up is Nihil. This is 15 capacity, which is a weird number. But it stops enemies' skills. Khalil and Nasir start with it, and then you get a Nihil scroll. This is basically nothing also. A lot of basically nothing skills. So, it stops enemies' skills, but most enemies don't have skills. There's, like, on the final map of the game, I guess niche, because on the final map of the game, there's, like, Swordmasters with Astra, Paladins with Soul, Sniper with Deadeye. So there's, like, on the final map of the game, it's nice to not have to deal with those proc skills, because you can't, like, prevent them with, you know, any sort of anti-crit tools, like bond supports or whatever. And that's cool. So yeah, that's niche. But for 99% of the game, there's no enemy skills. I guess I wouldn't sell it. I would give it to, like, someone you're planning on having do a lot of combat. Maybe save it for the final map. And so that way, if someone died, like in an Iron Man, Oscar died unexpectedly, you wasted it on him or something. But give it to one of your, like, primary combat units in the final map, just to not have to deal with the obnoxious Swordmasters and snipers and whatnot. Yeah, it's nice. I guess. It's niche. It is technically positive, but it's not in the tier technically positive. Yay for Khalil, yay for Nasir, if you've got Nasir. I guess if you've got Nasir, it's good, because, like, you're gonna use Nasir in the final map to fight Ashnard. That's cool. I don't have much to say about it. Like, what enemy skills are there outside of the final map? Petrine has Daunt. I mean, when you're fighting Enna's skills, like Miracle and shit. The other thing is that, like, I don't know the full list, but not every skill is affected. But I think most of the ones you care about are, like, the percent chance 1-star, so that's good. Next up is Paragon. This skill's goated. This is probably the best skill in the game. I'm not ordering the tiers, but I'm gonna put Paragon at the top. This doubles your experience gain, and this also applies to bonus experience. This means not only can you, like, catch up faster. Astrid is the only unit. Oh no, Astrid and Joffrey are the only units that have it. You have no Paragon Scroll. So you can't teach it to anyone, but Astrid and Joffrey have it, and it's 15 capacity for each of them. It basically means that not only do they catch up faster, like Astrid starts under-leveled, and Joffrey, I guess, technically does. He's a pre-promoted paladin, but, like, joins near the end of the game. But not only do they catch up faster, but if you leave Paragon on them, they will pull even farther ahead. Like, Astrid stays ahead of the experience curve. And that's pretty awesome. Like, that's why Astrid's even worth it. And doubling your bonus experience is also super good. Like, it means you don't have to train your training projects. You can just BXP them. And you get double with the Paragon ones. It is hard to communicate, like, just how much of a boost doubled experience is, but it's like, it's double the level ups, right? And when you're behind, that means you catch up faster. When you're on par, it means you pull ahead. If you're getting double the amount for kills, even when over level, you'll still, like, gain a decent amount of experience. It's so good. There's a reason that they've stopped giving Paragon to people now. Like, it's a ridiculous skill. It's a truly ridiculous skill. Alright, moving from one of the best skills available, we're moving into certainly one of the skills of all time. Parity is, I believe you get a parity scroll, and then it starts on Lucia. Yeah, you get a parity scroll, and it starts out on Lucia. It is a 5 capacity skill. Well, I mean, I guess Miracle's not the only 5 capacity skill, and this certainly should be 5 fucking capacity. This is actively harmful. It negates the combat skills, support bonuses, and terrain bonuses for both you and your opponent. This is actively harmful. So, enemies don't have supports. Only players have supports in Path of Radiance. So that, first off, that's only a downside, negating support bonuses. Negating terrain bonuses theoretically could be useful for fighting, like, an enemy on a throne or in a bush or whatever, but most of the time, there's actually not that much terrain bonus and the enemies don't take advantage of it. I think there's, like, in Lucia's join map. No, the throne in Lucia's join map is occupied by Joffrey. It's like an arrive tile. Yeah, the enemy isn't even in terrain. I guess on the Moment of Fate, in the Moment of Fate and Clash, there are enemies in terrain tiles. So, like, it can be helpful there, I guess, but not getting support bonuses, not being able to use your other skills as well, like 5 capacity means you can technically have this and Astra on Lucia at the same time for, like, then it stops you from getting Astra. Wait, no, it's goated. It stops you from wasting your weapon durability. This doesn't hurt you that much. Like, support bonuses aren't a big deal in Path of Radiance, but not being able to take advantage of terrain, not being able to take advantage of supports, even if they're not, like, hugely impactful, they are positive. It is technically harmful. Like, it's actively bad. Take it off Lucia as soon as you want and sell the scroll. Like, don't use the scroll. It's just not good. It's just not good. Shoutouts to Radiant Dawn, where this stops you from taking advantage of the dragon's tide abilities. You can't use white tide, black tide, or red tide with parity equipped. This is so stupid. Oh my god. This is a Path of Radiance list, so like, I'm not gonna penalize it for that. But like, they really nerfed this skill in Radiant Dawn. Oh my god. Fucking hell. Next is Provoke. Another 5 capacity one. Okay. This is basically nothing. So, this increases the chances of someone attacking you. Shannon has it by default, and you get a scroll, you can give it to someone else. I don't know the exact formula. I've been told a few different things. I think the one I've been told the most, and so it's what I believe, is Provoke makes it so the enemy always thinks you can't counter, which, I mean, it being on Shannon means, like, okay, he usually can't counter anyway. But, like, it basically acts as a tiebreaker. This is not, like, GBA Provoke. Like, some ROM hacks will have Provoke and it's absolutely busted there. In Path of Radiance, Provoke is, like, it increases the amount the enemy wants to target you, but they will still prioritize, like, getting kills. If you have this on, like, Gatri, and he's standing next to Ilyana, the enemy will kill Ilyana instead of attacking Gatri for 0. It basically only works as a tiebreaker, and in those situations, it doesn't really matter who gets attacked. So I think it's basically nothing. I don't know. Take it off of Shannon if you care, or leave it on him if you care. I don't really... It's hard to judge it not knowing exactly how much it impacts things. I think the fact that at a glance, you won't know how much it impacts things either means that it's bad. Like, you might as well not have it, right? Especially on Shannon, who the enemies are already going to prioritize because he's an archer and can't counter. So, like, what's the point? I mean, I know what the point is, right? It's flavor. Shannon's a Redditor and everyone wants to beat the shit out of him, and that's awesome. Like, that's funny flavor. Next up is Reinforce. This skill is goated. This skill is goated. So, Reinforce is a skill that only Tanith has, and it means twice per map, she can summon 3 yellow unit Falcon Knights. Well, 2 Pegasus Knights and 1 Falcon Knight. And they are NPCs you can direct around. They will attack enemies, or they will go wherever you send them, and you can use them basically to lure enemies and, like, have them attack the Falcon Knights instead of your units. It's basically like summons from FE8. I guess, technically in Path of Radiance, especially on, like, hard and below, like if you're not doing the Japanese exclusive Maniac mode, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Like, if they attack the Falcon Knights, and instead of attacking your units, it's not like your units would have died, right? I made a whole video about summons in FE8 and why I don't think they're particularly good. But in FE9, you get 3 of them, well, 6 of them, per map. And the Falcon Knights will do work too. Like, they're not just luring enemies, they'll also counterattack for decent amounts of damage. They'll attack people for decent amounts of damage. Their stats scale on difficulty. So the higher difficulty you're on, the stronger the Falcon Knights become. They have, like, slightly random stats, but they are typically going to be fighting at a pace that helps you. You know, any extra damage, basically getting extra bodies is nice. And the fact that they're free means you don't have to care if they die. I just think it's really good. I think you should never take it off of Tanith. It's quite nice. Next up is Renewal. I have to refresh my memory on how Renewal works in Path of Radiance. It is 15 capacity. Oh, Reinforce is also 15 capacity. So Renewal is 15 capacity. It restores 10% of your HP. Okay, because it varies from game to game. There's, like, Imbue, which is equal to your magic stat. So healing 10% every turn. I have to put this in noticeable positive effect, because it's a slightly worse version of Raisins. Where it'll heal for less than Raisins, and it heals 1 person. Ashnard has it as an enemy, which is, like, unfortunate. Like, outpacing his renewal is a little bit frustrating if you don't have a super good Ike. And then Elincia and Enna start out with it, and you do get a renewal scroll. Giving it to, like, a tanky unit or a frontlining unit, like one of your paladins, is nice. Just passive healing. It's nice. It's a noticeable positive effect. I'd take it over a lot of these, like, percent-based skills. So yeah, renewal's good. It's nothing to, like, super write home about, but you appreciate it when you have it. I think it's worth more than the gold that you would get from getting it. 10% of your HP is not a huge amount, is worth noting. Like, if you're actually, no, I think it's, the more I think about it, 10%, not 20%. Yeah, 10%, it's gonna be like 2 or 3 HP per turn. Technically positive, maybe even niche. Like, yeah, I think I knock it down to niche because it's very rare that you'll end up in a situation where an extra, like, if you're at 30, if you have 35 HP, since it always rounds down, in your 30s, it's 3 HP per turn. In your 40s, it's 4 HP per turn. And 40 is the unpromoted cap. Most people don't get higher than, like, 50. Yeah, that's bad. 5 HP per turn when you're at 50. I guess technically positive. It's better than niche. Niche is, like, there's a very hyper-specific time you would use it. Like, Nihil on the final map, Corrosion against Siege Tomes, Flare against, like, other mages. But, like, God, it's bad. No, the more I talk about it, the more I realize, like, it's just not impactful at all whatsoever. It's just bad. It's just bad. It's just not doing it for me. It's just bad. Alright, next we have Resolve. This is a skill that Tyronio starts with, and you get a scroll for it, although near the very end of the game. It is a 15 capacity skill, and it is fucking incredible. It's goated. So when you're at half HP or fewer, your strength, speed, and skill stats all get multiplied by 1.5%. This is a huge boost. It often changes you from getting doubled to doubling your opponent. It makes it so you deal a ton more damage, and of course it ups your accuracy, and because of skill, it also ups your crit rate. The biggest, like, upside that Resolve has is the fact that it's 15 capacity and Wrath is 10 capacity, means a promoted unit can fit both of them together, and they synergize really well. Wrath adds 50% flat crit rate. So the skill boost you get will boost your crit rate in addition to Wrath's crit, and the strength boost you get means that you deal even more damage because it's factored in, the multiplying of your strength is factored in before, you know, damage and then crits and whatnot. And speed boost means if you're doubling when you wouldn't double before, now suddenly you have 2 chances to crit. So that's really good. It's often seen as, like, the best way to handle the final boss, Ashnard, is to give either Ike or Enna Wrath and Resolve as a combo. Nobody can double Ashnard without Resolve except for fucking Nesala. But the speed caps of Ike's class and the Dragon's classes means that without Resolve, they can't double Ashnard anyway. So it boosts damage a ton that way. And then Ashnard is immune to crits, but Wrath pierces that. Like, I think it's glitched. He's probably not supposed to be able to get Wrath crit, but the way that it works, it adds that 50% before it lowers your crit rate to 0. Or after it lowers the crit rate to 0. And so then, like, in combination with each other, Wrath and Resolve are absolutely goated. But Resolve is also, I think, the stronger half of that combination. Like, if you just have one, which is basically just going to be Tyronio, doubling your, or not doubling, but, like, allowing you to double by 1.5 times multiplying your speed and increasing your damage output by 1.5 times multiplying your strength is really nice. And then the skill is just gravy, like, just getting extra accuracy is cool. It's really nice, like, being able to double when you couldn't double, except for it's, like, reliable, unlike Adept. So it's one of the best skills in the game, one of the best skills in the franchise. It's good. It's good. And moving on from that, we have Roar. This is the Occult Scroll skill for cats, tigers, and lions. Gifka starts out with it, but you can also give it to Laith, Ranulf, or Mordecai, or Moira. It is a activated command So unlike the other mastery skills, you can just like use it, and it stuns your opponent for 1 turn. But you can only activate it once per chapter, and you can't use it against bosses. I think this is, honestly, I used it a lot in Zero Growths with like Roar Ranulf. I think the biggest thing that holds this back is you have to use one of the beasts for it. Like, it can only be given to beasts, and that's just not often gonna be like this. They're not often gonna be on your team. But like if you're using Mordecai as a smite bot, giving him, well, I guess you can't fit it alongside smite, because it's 20 capacity as like a occult scroll. It is better than a lot of the occult skills, I'll say that. I think I'm gonna put it in noticeable positive effect, because you can choose to activate it. Just being able to say this enemy doesn't get to move this turn is nice. Of course, killing an enemy also lets you say this enemy doesn't get to move this turn, and it's like permanent and forever. I think actually it's just technically positive, because I'm thinking about it from the Zero Growths perspective, where my units were not strong enough that everyone could 1 round. In a normal playthrough, most of your units, by the time you have like a cat with a mastery skill, most of your units are gonna 1 or 2 round. So stunning an enemy for 1 turn, like getting 1 time to stun an enemy, since it doesn't work on bosses, is just not that big a deal. Like, it is still helpful. I'm gonna put it in niche, actually. I think it's niche. I think this is sort of the skill that niche was made for. Where if you're in a scenario where you absolutely need to stop an enemy from acting, like you've got low HP Riss and he's in range and you can't kill the paladin that can reach him, but you can roar them, that's nice. But most of the time, it's not gonna be super useful. So yeah, I think niche, I guess niche is in this weird spot where like when niche is good, it's better than like noticeable positive effect. Like I'd rather have Nihil on the final map than like Boon, or like Raisin's healing effect or whatever. But like most of the time it's nothing. Like Corrosion is better against Siege Tomes than like hit plus 20, but most of the time it's nothing. So like niche isn't really ordered in the tier list. It could be top or bottom depending, and that's kind of what niche is. But yeah, Roar is it's an interesting skill. I think it would be cool if something like that came back, maybe as like a combat art type deal where instead of dealing damage you just freeze them. I know what is it, Claude's combat art Encloser does that, but it does also deal damage and you gotta hit and whatnot. Roar just like being, yeah, you can choose to freeze this guy is like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I guess an early precursor to the combat art system. All right, next up we have Savior. Savior makes it so that when you're rescuing rescuing someone, you don't suffer the rescue penalties. Tabarn starts with it, and you also get it as a scroll pretty late in the game. I think chapter, like, it's the chapter where Lucia joins, so that's like 23, 24, something like that. Is it bad if I put it in niche? So, like, it is genuinely nice. I guess technically positive. It's genuinely nice not to take rescue penalties. It's also only 10 capacity, so it combos with stuff more easily. It's nice not to take rescue penalties. Like, the fact that you can be like, okay, not have my speed and skills cut in half to rescue someone out of danger or whatever. If on a Seas map, you're, like, rescuing Ike with Jill or Marcia or Har or Tanith or whoever, that's cool. Most of the time, though, you don't actually want to end turn with someone rescued. Whenever possible, you want to rescue someone and then, like, drop them on that same turn. So you shouldn't be facing enemies with rescue penalties most of the time. And the reason for that is that if you like end turn with someone rescued, then next turn you don't get their action, like your -1 action economy, which is bad, which is why you always want to drop the turn that you've rescued someone whenever possible. You know, a few exceptions, if you're escorting Ike to a seize point in like a LTC type deal, or like if you just don't have the action economy for it and like you want to prevent one of your squishies from getting killed, I think niche. I think when you have to do combat with someone in your saddlebags, it's nice not to be like held back by that. But I think most of the time you don't want to end your turn rescuing someone. Like, because if you've rescued Ike and you don't drop him the same turn you rescue him, you just don't get an Ike action the next turn. Like, and that's just unfortunate. Yeah, I think that's where it's at. Next up is Serenity. This cuts biorhythm bonuses in half. I did an entire video on biorhythm, so that's linked below. Check it out if you're interested. But the way that this works, biorhythm bonuses are 5 hit and avoid, and then the penalties are 5 hit and avoid, depending on if you've got good or bad biorhythm. Because this cuts them in half, and Path of Radiance always rounds down, it makes it 2 hit and avoid, and that's fucking nothing. It basically turns off biorhythm, but biorhythm is already a super unimpactful mechanic. So I think taking a mechanic that does fucking nothing and changing it into doing nothing also is basically pointless. It's 5 capacity, so like it's not doing anything for you, but there's no scroll for it. Only Riss and Devdon have it to start out. And yeah, it's just whatever. It's the most whatever skill of all time. Like, what if we took Biorhythm, a mechanic that most people ignore anyway, and made it even more ignorable? It's like, yeah, it's bad. Yeah. Next up is Shade. You do actually get a Shade scroll, I think in the mid-game? And then Volk and Ileana start with Shade. So that is cool, I guess. Yeah, it's dropped by an enemy in Chapter 18. I just looked it up, the Shade Scroll. Shade is the opposite of Provoke. It decreases the chances of enemies attacking you, but much like with Provoke, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. I think it basically convinces the game, from what I've heard, it basically convinces the enemy that you can counterattack, which, like, Ileana always can. So again, like, Shannon, like, what the fuck? But, like, enemies will still attack Ileana and kill her if they kill her and not people around her. So it's, like, it's pointless. It's much like Provoke. It's, like, it's just doing nothing for you. It technically, like, as a tiebreaker skill, it can technically sometimes be impactful, but the fact that it is wildly unpredictable means, much like with, like, Miracle, I think of it like Miracle, right? It'll sometimes save your life, and you don't know when it has or hasn't. But it's not something you can actively rely on because it's weird and unpredictable. Yeah, so that's bad. So that's bad. Next up, we have Smite. I believe this is Smite. Shove isn't on here. Neither Shove nor, like, Cavalry Canto is on here. Just the Dance Canto. So Smite, for anyone who doesn't know, Shove is an action that all infantry units get, and they can always shove someone who weighs 1 more than them or less 1 tile away from them. You can shove anyone 1 tile away from you, whether they're friend or foe. There's just like a weight capacity. You need to have... It's a little bit weird and complicated, but basically you need to have be within 1... Or you can shove anyone lighter than you, and you can shove someone who weighs 1 more than you. It's so fucking hard to say that in a concise way that isn't confusing. But Smite is a 10 capacity skill. You get a Smite scroll, and Mordecai starts with it. And it lets you smite someone by shoving them 2 tiles instead of 1 tile. I think this is a noticeable positive effect. I can see it being niche. The nice thing about Mordecai having it is he's a really high con unit. He has a very heavy weight, so he can shove all infantry and some number of cavalry just like at base. And then if you give him statue frags, I think he can shove every unit in the game, including, like, wyverns. So that's cool. I don't think he can shove Har, but he can shove Jill. And that's a lot. So, like, being able to push someone 2 tiles, like, that's good. It opens up specific strategies. I think, actually, I'm going to put it down to niche. The most notable occurrence of Smite is smiting Ike to recruit Astrid on turn 1 so that she doesn't die to the enemies. But it's pretty easy to find instances where Shove and Smite are useful, even outside of like an LTC playthrough. There's a lot of times where you care about turn count, either to get bonus experience thresholds, or like a bandit's gonna destroy a village, or just smiting someone out of danger. Like, much like you can rescue someone out of danger, if you have Rolf attack someone and then you need to push him to safety, like smiting him out of enemy range is a way to do that. And that only takes 1 unit's action instead of the 2 that would be needed for a rescue drop. Pushing someone forward to get them into danger, like say Gatri is like you're all in on Gatri, but he's got very low movement. You got to smite him around. Maybe it's not niche then. Maybe it is a noticeable positive effect. I think it's a noticeable positive effect because there's a lot of situations where being able to shove 2 tiles is nice. Now the downside, of course, is that like because only infantry can shove and therefore only infantry can smite. They don't have Canto, so anytime you smite, you fall behind. Because ideally you want to smite someone who hasn't taken their turn yet, so that then they can like move more. But like I said, sometimes you can use it like on someone who took their turn to get them to safety, like the shoving Rolf example. It's got a lot of nice applications. I think it's at least on the level of plus 20 hit. Yeah, so it's got to be noticeable positive effect. It's pretty good. It's pretty good in that regard. Next up is Soul. So Soul is the mastery skill of Paladins and also Valkyrie, which is Mist's promoted class. It's a skill % chance to recover your HP equal to the damage you deal. This is equal to literally the damage you deal, so like it's capped by your enemy's max HP. If you have like a 23 attack and your enemy only has 2 HP, you go Soul, you only recover 2 HP. I think this is probably like one of the best mastery skills, although in part it's because Paladins tend to be like strong units. But it increases your tankiness. Much like with the other skill % ones, like we're looking at a 1 out of 5 combats, but if you're fighting a lot of foes on enemy phase, just like 1 out of 5 combats heal by 10 to 20 damage it's nice. Like it heals you quite a bit. It makes it so your Paladins can sort of push forward and be exceptionally tanky, and it saves on healing, which is good because like limited healers in Path of Radiance. I think it's probably in the goated tier. It's definitely worse than Ether, even if we like account for the fact that, you know, Oscar's a better unit than Ike. I would much rather have Ether in a vacuum than have Soul in a vacuum. But I think Soul it does a lot for Paladins who are already quite good units. I could see it being put on noticeable positive effect, because it is just a strictly worse version of Ether for not getting that second attack. I guess not strictly worse, because like, in theory, if you're doubling, you could Soul twice, whereas if you're doubling and you proc Ether, you're not gonna get a second Ether, but like, realistically, it's just a worse version of Ether, right? Like, niche situations where Soul could be better, but it's usually worse. But even then, I think, you know, just because it's worse than Ether doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to be in the top tier. Because it is phenomenal. It's a big difference maker, right? Like, it's a very good skill. Next up, we have Steel. That's a class skill associated with Thieves, so it doesn't cost any capacity. And you never can learn it. Soth and Volk have it by default. And the way that it works is you can steal from enemies who have less speed than you. And you can steal unequipped weapons and items, but for weapons, you need to have more strength than the weapon's weight. This is really good. I don't think it's quite good enough to be on the tier of goated. I know some people will disagree. I find that the number of stealables in Path of Radiance is actually pretty low. The big one is physics stabs. Steal is the way you get most of your physics stabs. But other than that, there's a couple of gems, but most items that you care about are droppable. And then most enemies only have one weapon, and you can't steal an equipped weapon. There's a lot of paladins in the mid and late game, and sometimes they'll have two weapons because they have two weapon types, but oftentimes they don't. Like, I used to think, oh, paladins always have two weapons. But I did a replay recently, and like, I was surprised at how many paladins were like, yeah, I'm a bow sword paladin, but I only have a bow. I'm an axe lance paladin, I only have a lance. Like, I don't know. A lot of paladins just like don't have two weapon types. There's some cool steals early on. The boss of chapter 11 has a Lagoon Slayer and a steel bow. And if you can bait him into equipping the steel bow by standing at the edge of his range, then you can steal Lagoon Slayer, although you need to do some BXP rigging to get Volk's strength up. And then there's like, there's a couple of killer bows in the mid game I've stolen. The big thing is physic, like, and getting physic stabs is nice. But look at like how many other options you have for healing in Path of Radiance, like just through the skills. And a lot of your units are super tanky relative to enemy damage output anyway. So I don't think getting a fuck ton of physics is enough to be goated, but it is enough to be it's a noticeable positive effect. Like, it is how you stock up on your physics stabs. And then like, I know some people will be like, oh, you can use it to steal siege tomes. You really fucking can't. You really fucking can't. Like, you not only have to bait a enemy into using their non-siege tome weapon, which most siege tome users move, so you can't even fucking really do, because they'll just move out of your range and equip a siege tome. But then like, you need the strength to steal a siege tome. It's such a mess. I'd sooner steal status stabs like sleep than steal siege tomes, but even that feels like pretty niche. I think it is mostly just like the gets you a physics staff skill. But like, hey, there's much worse. Look at stuff like fucking Colossus. You could do a lot worse than the get you a physics staff skill. Like, I'll take the get you a physics staff skill, especially as opposed to stun. Stun is the mastery skill of all flying classes. So Falcon Knight, Wyvern Lord, and Alincia's personal class. So it's an occult scroll. It costs 20 capacity. Nobody actually starts out with it, weirdly enough. And it is a skill divided by 2% chance to shock an enemy when you attack them. So again, we're thinking like 10% at most, 10 to 15% at most. And the fact that it's RNG, I think makes it basically nothing. It's funny because like, Roar also inflicts the shock status, but you get to control that. It's just you can only do it once per map. And that is so much better than not getting to control it, because it happens when you hit someone. So you're already attacking them. If you've got your promoted Falcon Knight or Wyvern or even Alincia attacking a foe, you're probably expecting them to die. So often shock will go off and do literally nothing because the foe dies. And if they're not dead, they're reduced to such low HP, you can easily kill them anyway. I think this is like the most disappointing mastery skill. This is why I say like occult is just not very good. You can't sell as cult, so like you might as well use it on someone, but you might as well not use it on a flyer because like stun is nothing. Stun is fucking nothing. Next up we have Tempest. Tempest is the opposite of Serenity. It is also 5 capacity, and it doubles your biorhythm, so it changes it from 5 hit and avoid to 10 hit and avoid, as both a bonus and a penalty. Much like with Serenity, there's no scrolls for it, but Boyd and Akalov start with it. I think it's actively harmful. Check out my biorhythm video if you want more information, but the TLDR is the way the biorhythm advances makes it so that on some maps you will usually have 10 extra hit, and on some maps you will usually have 10 less hit. The avoid bonus doesn't matter. The way that it works out for Boyd is in the early game, Tempest is negative for him more often than it's positive, and it means it's very hard for him to like actually get the ball rolling training. I would remove this, not as soon as possible. I would check to see what his biorhythm is, I would remove this the first chance you have that he has negative biorhythm, because that's when it's first hurting him. Leave it on him whenever it's helping him, because like 10 extra hit is nice. Boyd can struggle with hit rates. And then for Makalov, like, it's whatever. Like, he's got swords. His biorhythm's random as well. He doesn't really care either way. I think it'll hurt him more often than it helps him, because he's often hitting 100 hit without biorhythm, and then, like, it might reduce his hit because of the negative. So, like, take it off of Makalov if you're going to use him as well. This is actively bad, but it's actively bad in, like, the most minor way possible. Kind of like Parity, where it's, like, the downside doesn't matter, but it does have a downside, and it doesn't really have an upside. So, like, that's where I'm at on that. Next up is Vantage. I'm tempted to put Vantage in basically nothing, but it is technically a niche skill. Vantage makes it so you always attack first. Unlike other games, there's not an HP threshold. You just always attack first. It is the native skill of Mia. I think only Mia? Oh, Nesala. Lol. And then you get a Vantage Scroll. The thing is, your damage output is usually not enough to one-shot the enemy. Enemies in Radiant or in Path of Radiance are really bulky. They're not super threatening, they don't deal much damage to you, but they have super high HP values. Especially on Mia, like Noodle Arm Mia, she's not one-shotting with Vantage. If you don't one-shot with Vantage, it's like nothing happened. Because if you attack first on enemy phase, then the enemy counters you because you didn't kill them. Well, that's the same as the enemy attacking first and you countering them. The only time that it matters is if you attack first, you kill the enemy, and then they can't counter you, right? It's a bulk boosting skill in that regard. But you're not going to be able to one-shot most foes. There's some weird, like, Vantage synergy stuff you can do. The ultimate meme is to give Vantage to Sorin for Adept, because he's 1-2 range. He might Vantage Adept and kill something. And that can be funny. I guess also, like, Vantage Astra. Oh, no, it's 10 capacity, so no Vantage Astra. So yeah, I guess Vantage Adept, Vantage Crits, because Mia has it. It is, like, it's funny. Despite not being a percent skill, it is basically RNG, because the only Vantage strategies are all RNG dependent. Yeah. I guess technically also, if you've got, like, an enemy you 3-shot, you attack them on player phase, double them, and then on enemy phase, you Vantage them and kill them before they can attack you. Like, that's kind of cool. But for the most part, like, you're struggling to find situations where Vantage helps you in Path of Radiance. Vantage Wrath is another one people like to big up, because you can give it to, like, Vantage, you give Vantage to Nephany, or you give Wrath to Mia, and then you have Vantage Wrath. You get the 50% crit bonus at 50% HP or lower, which, like, Vantage doesn't have the HP threshold, but Wrath does, right? And then you just have a high chance to crit before the enemy can attack you. And that works even better with a killer weapon, where you will then have, like, around 80% crit chance, which is cool. But you can also do it with, like, a Javelin on Nephany if you want. I think with a killer weapon, Mia can probably hit 100 crit with Wrath, because the crit bonus from Swordmaster too. So, like, in that situation, that's kind of cool for her. It requires you to use Mia, which is a tall order, but that is cool for her. Yeah, it's niche. Like, you kind of have to build your unit to take advantage of Vantage, and all of the Vantage builds have downsides, like, you know, it's fine, but it's niche. It's very niche. It's very niche. Next up is Vigilance. This is the plus 20 of Void that Ulgi gets. It's sort of the counterpart to Janop's plus 20 hit. So it's a soldier thing, or civilian thing, whatever. 0 capacity. He has it for free. He can't have it removed. It's technically positive. Like, having 20 extra Void, it's hard to say that that's not a positive. Doesn't really matter. I know people are really fucking high on dodge tank builds in Path of Radiance. Because, like, oh, Earth Affinity! You get 5 fucking Avoid from an Earth Affinity support. But, like, the 20 avoid that Ulki gets is just, like, it's nothing. It's, like, whatever. It doesn't do anything. It is technically more than an A rank Earth Affinity support, though. So, like, take that for what it's worth. Dodge Tank Enjoyers, invest in Ulki, because he'll let you dodge. I don't think he has any supports with people with Earth Affinity. He himself has water. Yeah, his only supports are Riss and Boyd and Mordecai. So no Earth Affinity supports. How sad for you. You can't dodge max with Ulki. But at base, he has a skill that gives you more avoid than an A support with Earth Affinity. It's less than double Earth. It's equal to B rank double Earth. So I know everyone's all like, Ike and Oscar, yo, 30 avoid. But yeah, this skill it's nothing. It's whatever. Dodge Tank Ulki incoming. Alright, we got two more. I don't actually recognize this green one. What is this green skill? Vortex! This is Nasala's skill, Vortex. Technically, this is the mastery skill for Ravens, but Nasala is the only Raven. He starts out with it, and he doesn't ever exist during battle preps, so you can't, like, remove it and teach it to him. It allows him to, on command, attack with Elwind, which is a 4 might 90 hit tome. His Elwind is infinite durability, and it's effective to flying units, although 2 times effective, so, like, lol. What's Nasala's base magic, actually? What the fuck is his base magic? Attacking off of a 17 base while transformed. This is basically nothing. This is the most basically nothing skill in the fucking world. Not only is it a skill you will almost never have, because, like, 1, Nasala only joins in the final map. 2, you have to choose Nasala as opposed to Barn or Gifka. And 3, well, I guess it's just those 2. But then, like, in addition to that, why is Nasala clicking this instead of attacking? He always does more damage just by attacking. The biggest use case that Vortex has is when Nasala is an enemy. It means you can lure him by having someone stand in Vortex range, and he'll attack them with Vortex and won't kill them, whereas if he attacked them physically, he would. And that's part of the strategy that I like to use to accomplish the Night Ring objective, which is to talk to Nasala before any of the Ravens die. It's a pretty tricky side objective if you don't know. I have a cheese strategy. I'm thinking about making a video of the cheese strategy, so I guess let me know in the comments if you want to see a tutorial on how to get the Night Ring in Path of Radiance, because it's a really good item, and the side objective can be hard if you don't know the solution. But then that brings us to our last skill, Wrath. This is also goated. I think of the Wrath Resolve combo, this is the weaker half. But there's some cool stuff you can do with it. Like I mentioned, Vantage Wrath is a thing that people like. Plus 50 crit is cool. The fact that the 50 crit is calculated after Ashnard's anti-crit skill reduces your crit to 0 is really nice. Wrath and Resolve, of course, combo very, very well. I sort of talked about that. But even just Wrath on its own, I guess I should say, so Nephany starts out with Wrath. I believe she's the only one who does. Let me double check. But then you also get it as a scroll. Many people, myself included, believe the best way to use that scroll is to combine it with the Resolve, like save it for Ike and give it to Ike with Wrath Resolve. It's 10 capacity, so unfortunately it cannot be combined with Ether. So if you want to give it to Ike, you either have to, like, wait till the end of the game or never give Ike Ether. But like, it's not like Ike is the only one who can use it. Like, all right, and then right, only Nephany starts out with it. You can give it to a Vantage user. You can, I mean, just give it to a tanky user, someone who's like fine being a low 50% HP. And that is cool for them. And they'll just like score 6 crits. And that's nice. Yeah, I think this is where, I think I'm happy with this tier list. Like I said, niche is sort of, I have it underneath technically positive. I think in the scenario, like in the case where these skills are useful, they're usually better than technically positive. So maybe I move it up. It's weird. It's one of those where like, oh, well, now the list looks ugly. Let's make this blue. There we go. It's weird, though. It's one of those where, like, more often these will be impactful as opposed to these. But, like, when these are impactful, they're more impactful. Niche is weird. Niche isn't necessarily, like, ranked in between everything, you know? At its best, Niche is, like, phenomenal, and at its worst, Niche is nothing. That's kind of what niche means, but aside from that, I'm happy with this list. So let me know how you feel about this list. Are there any skills that I liked more than you? Or any skills that I liked less than you? What's your favorite skill? Whether, not even necessarily what you think is best. What's the most fun, right? Like, I put Astra in actively bad because I think it harms you, but like a lot of people like it because it's fun to see someone attack 5 times, you know? Edward killing Astra with Super Astra Soul. You know? And people like that. Anyway, subscribe. Thank you to Glupshido, Erica Ford, Perg Knight, YLO1, George Grenville, the 7th PM, Jamie Collins, Arvis, Crispy Matthews, Floahay, Amy Hazel, Hungry Heart, Hound Dogs, Lovis Ramen, Shinthia, Faulty Videos, Kyle Madison, Derek Williams, Anna Cabanla, The Daily Fugel, Faye, Magic Bite, Thoughtful Insanity, Robin Goodfeller, JT Spritter, Ziggy WSB, Dysite, Chris, Root Beer Pants, Queen Eliza, Control Alt Ages, Roman Chromantic, Knick Knack, Hammersmack, Carrier has left, Angel Napcasera, Zanwif, Not Gino, Flingon, Edward C, Cyrockin 2, Cabbage, SUP, Caius Cole, Bree, Punchfighter Champion, Eggman, Maxine the Vampire Queen, Dragonback Lancer, Sardonic Muse, Zero Gamer, Femtal Illness, Wannabe Cinnabon, Punk Tattoo Guy, Key the Iron Idol, Calamity Callie, Jax McMahon, Saren Gurlixy, Resi, Dino Anna, Andu, Rhea, Gameboo, Corrosive, Fyrant, Your Doctor, Frozen Helm, Patwit, KH, Electric Giga, Girl Boss, Lizard Bong Water, Christopher Bueno, Marin McLean, Jaden, Dylan Solis, Some Trades, Guiji 555, Smaz Ruby, Zycrom, Robin DLNB, They Thom, Clan, Pillow Willow, and especially my Jakins, Your Best Friend 9000, Adele, Alexander Roper, Sensitive Luigi, Siggy, Low Man, and KTRRK2. If you would like to join this list of lovely individuals, there's a link to my Patreon below, but please only donate if you can comfortably afford to do so. I don't want anyone going broke over fucking Colossus. Fucking Colossus! Have a wonderful day, gamers.